Hi everyone, we're here again, Chit-Chat Café.
Hello. Welcome. I'm Carolyn from the Good Mental Health Co-op, and joined today by Sarah Haskett, who's also from the Good Mental Health Co-op and Creative Mental Health, and Bryony Wildblood, who is a facilitator of a fascinating course that is starting in a week's time. So, Bryony, can I just ask you to say something about your background and how you've come to put on a course with the fascinating title Dead Curious?
Yes, thanks, Carolyn. I think partly because I have always been dead curious right from being young. Me and my sister used to hang around at cemeteries and things like that, and lots of conversations with my family about death and dying always fascinated me. But I think a really formative experience for me was my grandma's funeral. And she died when I was 15, and it was very sudden and very shocking, and we just weren't prepared for it at all as a family, and we were devastated. And for me, my personal experience of a funeral wasn't a positive one. It felt very rushed. We were rushed through. We were leaving the chapel. People were coming in behind us. And I think from that point on, I thought there's got to be a different way of working with this. There's got to be a different way of working with funerals. There's got to be a different way of somehow preparing and readying ourselves for the reality that we're going to lose people in our lives. And I think a lot of different paths in my life led up to the point of me training as an interfaith minister. I've also trained as a funeral celebrant, but it was really the interfaith training that helped me bring the work that I want to do into the world. And I also, as having been ordained as an interfaith minister, started working as a hospice chaplain, an interfaith minister in the hospice. So working alongside people, individuals and their families as they were approaching death, and just really listening to what's important to people at that point and what supports them and what helps them, and realizing that actually we all need to be doing this work now, really.
Yeah. Oh, it's really fascinating, and to hear you talk about kind of how that started when you were really young. And we've got a couple of people watching on the stream. Emmett said good morning over on Twitter. I want to open this up if anyone's got any questions, to just write them in the chat and let us know that you're there. And today we're talking about this really unique course that Bryony's leading, and I find it quite touching. I find that the subject is it's very emotive, and it's so important, and it's something that we don't talk about. We're very shy to talk about death and the fact, but it happens to everyone. We all, it happens to us all in the end, and we're all touched by it at some point. So it's really I feel the passion about it. It's really so interesting. So tell us a bit about kind of how is the course going to evolve over, because it's a 5-week course, isn't it?
Yes, 5 weeks. So it's 5 live Zoom sessions, and then there's a fortnight between each session, which was really to give people space to digest what comes up in the sessions, and time to reflect as well. So there's a lot of sort of what I call self-directed learning as part of this course, because it's really about getting to know ourselves. I find that often in this work, people don't want to have these conversations until they're faced with it. Sometimes that's when it's most difficult to have these conversations. And I think I also believe that a lot of people come to me because they want to facilitate conversations with their loved ones, with their parents or their grandparents or partners or people in their life who have got life-limiting illnesses or who are dying. And it's how do you begin those conversations? And I really believe that we need to do the work on ourselves if we want to have those conversations. So if we expect other people to go to those difficult places and the places of grief and the places that feel shadowy and dark to us, we need to be prepared to look at our own selves as well. And I think that by doing that work, it really empowers us to not only have those conversations, but also to lead more fulfilling lives like now. So that's what the course will be juggling. We're going to start in the first week, really sort of talking about who we are a little bit more deeply than we might do in everyday conversations, getting to know each other a bit, and starting to look at our past and our history and what's influenced us up to this point, and what beliefs we hold around death and dying, where we find meaning in our lives, whether we've got any hang-ups about that, things that don't feel comfortable to us, things that we're absolutely certain of. We'll be exploring all of that. And then as we move through the course, we'll be looking at the idea of what do we mean by good death, to have a good death? What does that mean for us individually, as a community? What does that mean in relation to our friends and family? And what might that look like for us? I mean, obviously, you can't plan because you don't know what's going to happen. But I think one of the biggest things that people would often talk about in the hospice was about regrets. And I think that's partly what I'm doing with this course as well. It's looking now to, if it comes soon, then what would you regret? What would you what would you do differently with your life, so that you can start moving forward in a meaningful, conscious way, to be better prepared, I think. And then, of course, towards the end of the course, we will also be looking at funerals. And I think that's a really interesting one. I've planned my own funeral in a lot of detail. I've received my own funeral from another who wrote it for me. And it was a real process, a really touching process to actually witness the idea of my dying. But I think what it helped me do was think, what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? And if it happened tomorrow, is there something I need to say to somebody? Is there something I need to resolve? Is there something I need to heal? That's really kind of thing.
Yeah. And someone on Twitch is sort of asking for us to explain a little more on. Am I getting a bit of an echo? Is there an echo?
Yeah.
I can't hear an echo.
Okay, hopefully it's all right. So just a quick explanation. I've put in the comments a link to your course. This is a funded course, 5 weeks, about kind of coming to a conscious place about death and how we process that, isn't it? How we process dying, how we talk about it, how we share about that. And someone else on Facebook has said that she works with dementia, and really encourages discussion on choices to try and break the discomfort that people face on the topic. And that's, I think, really important to, even just having this conversation here. I've got to admit, it feels really emotive. It feels slightly awkward, to be honest. And so that just speaks to me even more, to say that actually these are the conversations we need to be having. This is something that's very natural. It's very part of life. So there's a comment just appeared.
I think, it's interesting. It is a motive, and it's something I'm very conscious of in holding this course as well, that it is a motive for people, that we need sensitivity around it. We need tenderness with ourselves and with one another as well, because when it comes to beliefs, things can get quite heated, especially when we've got people on different sides of a spectrum with belief, and what happens next or doesn't happen next. So all of that is woven into how I'm bringing the course as well. And just something else I wanted to pick up on was that part of my offering this course was realizing that in the end of life work I was doing with other people, I was perfectly happy to sit down and talk to other people about their death and dying, and to facilitate that conversation and support people in that. But when it came to myself, it was less comfortable to really look closely at that. And that's something that keeps coming up in my death cafes, is we can kind of talk about it when it's over there happening to somebody else, but we can't. I'm pointing over out my window, but it's harder to bring it home and to talk about it close to us. And all kinds comes up. We get superstitious, and we feel like we're being negative, and for me it's not that way at all.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Just say it.
Oh, sorry, Carolyn. I was just gonna, before you do ask the next sort of moving forward question, there's something on Twitch where someone's just asking what is a interfaith minister? Could you explain what that means a little bit?
Yeah, do my best. It's one of those open-ended questions. I think the easiest way of describing an interfaith minister is somebody who works with people of all faiths and no faith. That's how I work. So for me, faith is on a spectrum between people who don't believe in anything, people who do believe in something very clear, and then everybody else is somewhere on that spectrum with their own very unique set of beliefs and sense of meaning and purpose in the world. And as an interfaith minister, it's about listening to that other person or that community about what's important to them and how they want to bring that into the work that we do together, which for me often is ceremony. So weddings, funerals, baby blessings, things like that. It's also the one-to-one work I do with people. And it's about consciously bringing our spiritual values and our sense of meaning in life into what we do. One Spirit interfaith ministers do all sorts of things in the world. A lot of us do ceremony and counselling work. But the idea is that you take your ministry and find your most authentic expression in the world. So it might be in being a mother, which has been a journey I've been on the last couple of years, is how do I bring my ministry to being a mum? It might be, working in a shop. How is it you bring your gift to the world there? It could be anything really.
Nice, thank you. Over to you, Carolyn.
Well, I just wanted to pick up on, you mentioned briefly the Death Cafe, Bryony, and I'm just thinking, I've come along to one of your Death Cafe meetings, but people might not quite know what that is. And I think you've had some experience, haven't you, of running these events for a while now?
Yeah. And I'm just literally trying to remember the founder's name, and I can't remember his name. I remember Jonathan. Can't remember his surname because I always confuse him with somebody else. But yes, so it was created quite a long time ago now by this chap called Jonathan something. We should look him up. He wanted to break down the taboos around talking about death and dying. So he came up with this idea for Death Cafe. It's now a kind of global idea. They're free or by donation. And the idea is it's supposed to be a really relaxed, agenda-free environment where people can meet to talk about death and dying, and that there are people in that space who facilitate the circle. But really, it's about sitting with a cup of tea and a piece of cake, and just breaking the taboos, really, and seeing where the conversation goes as well. And having led quite a few now, it can go anywhere from dealing with grief and bereavement to talking about what music you want at your funeral, or supporting people as they support their relatives through the process of dying. So really anything can come up at a Death Cafe. They're always really interesting.
Yeah.
When is your next one coming up?
So I'm holding one on Monday the 15th of March at 7 o'clock in the evening. It'll be on Zoom. It's on Eventbrite if anybody wants to find it. And we run them at the moment, they're every other month. So then the next one after that is in May. And I run them with a friend of mine who's a soul midwife and palliative care nurse, Diana.
Nice. Yeah.
And I suppose the other question that I wanted to ask was about if people sign up for your course, what kind of preparation do they need to make? And I also thought it's helpful to remind, so with this particular course you do have to attend, don't you, definitely the first live session to then be part of the group. With some of the other courses are being recorded, but that's not the same with this course.
I think I'm really encouraging people to come to as many of the sessions as they can. I mean, in theory you can listen to the recording, and if you've got a real reason for not being there, that's okay. But what I want the group to do is create this strong container for the emotive subject that is death. And I think we all need to be there for that, and we need to build that trust between us. to share what's vulnerable and what's difficult. So whilst, you know, I realise that some people might not always be able to be there, I'd like to encourage it. But we will be recording it for those who can't make it. And a big part of it will be the work that you do in between. And that's the same goes for preparation, really. I think, you know, in the welcome email, there's a reading list or there's some suggested resources, which are by no means compulsory. It's just I know some people love reading. Or like me, I like to buy lots of books and have them on my shelf and hope to read them one day. But there are some amazing books out there on the subject now, which I think can really open your mind about what's possible when it comes to having these conversations and offering choices. But I think the best preparation would be, for me, I would start journaling and writing down, you know, what do you feel curious about? What would you like to know more about? And what have you found difficult up till now? What brings you to sign up to do a course like this? Starting to get curious about what it is that's calling to you in this work.
And what kind of I mean, is this for any type of person, or would you say that there's a type of person that you're expecting will sign up for this course?
I'd like to say there isn't a type of person. I really hope there isn't, because I would like, you know, I genuinely would like more and more people to talk about this. And my experience is that, you know, the spectrum of people I've had these conversations with, you know, because, you know, through the hospice work and then through my work in ceremony, people often come up to me after weddings and end up talking to me about death and dying. I mean, I don't know if it's me that invites those conversations, but I actually find that most people, given the right conditions, do want to talk about this sort of thing. I mean, they may not want to talk about their own death and they might not want to talk about their funeral, but people do want to talk about what matters in life and what's important to them. And they really relish those conversations. It's just that it's providing a space for those conversations to happen. And I think we can get a bit awkward and we're more comfortable talking about the weather at a bus stop than we are about, you know, what it means to be alive right now.
That makes sense. It's so true.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, my experience of death cafes is that they don't attract a certain sort of person, but I think the people who come have normally brushed up against death in some way in their lives, perhaps, you know, immediately or recently and perhaps further away, but something in the idea of death cafe kind of resonates for them. They go, oh, okay, there's something here that is calling to me that I want to go deeper with. Or just ask some questions about, or find out what other people think about this.
It's interesting because from my background as a CBT therapist, obviously, I often help people with death anxiety and illness anxiety. And one of the ways that we would look at helping someone with that is to really, you know, face it and think about it and, you know, really examine what it means for them to have an illness or to die. And I think, you know, this work that you're doing, it's reaching out to those people who are like feeling a connection to this at the moment. I'd potentially suggest as well, you know, it's reaching out to people who maybe don't think that they're connected to it or don't want to think about it, but actually by doing that, by jumping that threshold, it's going to be helpful, because having those conversations just help us. You know, if we're anxious about something, then talking about it, getting it out in the open is a really healing way. And so I'm really particularly interested in that work, and it's fascinating.
And I think to talk about death is to talk about life as well. We can't separate the two. They're so closely interwoven. And, you know, this was really striking for me when I was pregnant and having a child, which was all about life and bringing life into the world. And yet suddenly my own death and relationships that came really to the fore with me. And I had to work with it in a way that I hadn't had to face up until that point, even though I'd done lots of hospice work. And it changed everything for me. So, you know, and I'm thinking of a chap called Stephen Jenkinson, who works in hospices in the States, and he does lots of reading and speaking and has toured the world. And he talks about this tribe in South America. And he says they don't have a word for grief because it's the same as the word for praise. So to grieve life is to praise it. And, you know, for me, that's just so poignant, because actually that when we're grieving, that's what we're doing. You know, it's dark and it's difficult, but it is a celebration of how much we've loved somebody or something that we've lost. And that's really, for me, the essence of this, of what I'm trying to do, is to bring in that the precious quality of life.
Yeah, yeah. That's nice. That's really touching.
Is there anything else you'd want to add to kind of let people know about, Bryony?
I mean, I think, for the people who are on the live stream, just to say that there's so many amazing resources out there. There's lots of, there's so much more than there used to be. Lots of people writing great books and blogs. Lots of people who work in end of life, I think, speaking about their experiences and what they've learned. And I think that's always really valuable to just dip into them and see what comes up for you. For the people who are thinking about joining the course, I hope I've kind of communicated it in what I brought today, but I want to say that yes, it will be emotive and all of those things and sensitive, but I hope that it will be inspiring too, and I hope it will leave people feeling enriched and empowered, and also I hope we'll have fun with it. You know, I want people to bring their sense of humor, because we need that too.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree. And even though it's just a emotive, and it's, you know, and yes, it's powerful, it's strong, that it doesn't mean it's necessarily depressing. Actually, it can be beautiful, and it is part of life, and it, you know, and it's a cycle, isn't it? The cycle of how things work, and there is beauty in that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And it's a celebration. I like that. And gosh, we've got loads of comments on the stream here. Lots of interest in this. So yeah, Lee on Facebook saying the course sounds fascinating. Already started collecting some music that I like. Oh,
that's a great way in as well. If for anybody listening thinking, how do I have these conversations with people? Music for your funeral is one of the things people love to talk about, bizarrely, because everybody's like, oh yeah, actually, you know, some people have got loads of songs, and some people are like, they need one song that they definitely want. And I think for us, you know, music is such an amazing way for us to express ourselves and who we see ourselves as in the world.
I had a friend who passed away a few years ago, very suddenly actually, but my friend Nikki, and she in her funeral, her family played a song that they played as we went in, that made everyone laugh, because it was just so Nikki. And it was wonderful, because there we were, you know, half in tears, you know, mourning the loss of a great friend and a truly wonderful person. And then we heard this really comical song that was just so her, that we all just started laughing. Yeah, it's actually making me laugh. It was really beautiful. Yeah. Lots of interest on the stream. Those of you who are watching, you know, the course is in the link there. I'd love to talk about this more. Maybe we'll get you on again another time, just to have a good old chat about this.
It's a big subject.
Yeah. There's obviously drawing a lot of interest. It's something that we want to put out there, but I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you so much.
Okay, it was really great chatting to you, Bryony, and very much looking forward to your course. So
yeah, me too. Thank you.
Thanks all for watching. The video will be available, won't it, to rewatch and come and sign up.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
At 10 o'clock on the Tuesday. That's right, isn't it?
It's yes. Yeah. Sorry, 10 o'clock starting next Tuesday. Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.